And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Wherever you happen to be in the world today, welcome one and all to, you guessed it, Coffee Talk. It is time for Coffee Talk, where we will be talking about what is going on in the world today and taking a look at some snippets from the news. We'll read through some articles, have a little bit of open discussion, as it were. And of course, this is Coffee Talk at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, if you all wouldn't mind looking for me there, as well as fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, as we get ready to dive into what is going on. And of course, I do try to read through as many of the comments as is reasonable. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chosen to chime in on the live portion thus far. I see Helter is here today. Dragon is here today. Brian, Urban Angst, Ragnar have thrown their hat in the ring, as it were, thus far. Cyberjack Sr., Fluke Man, being recognized as we get ready to see what's going on. There is Dusty, for those of you who can see in the background, keeping me company here this afternoon. No other felines in the room, at least not yet. They may or may not wander in. They may or may not wander in. And we'll take a look. We'll start. We're going to actually start in the District of Columbia today. District of Columbia. Oh, by the way, I'm still in negative. I'm still in negative subscription rates. Now, not just on Coffee Talk, but on Prepper University as well. Apparently, I have negative subscribers. So, you go from like on, for example, Prepper University, 200 subscribers a month to minus 34. That means that ScrewTube is throwing subscribers off your channel again. Just want to point that out. Anyways, we'll start off in the District of Columbia and a claim from Mayor Bowser. Mayor Bowser taking a lot of heat for some claims that have been made just recently. And this is not at all unusual because it's a claim that many mayors make in many cities across the country that have really out of control crime rates now, after they went through that whole defund the police nonsense a while back. Daily Mail article, outrage as DC Mayor Bowser's claim that crime is actually down in all categories. And that's Bowser right there. Article reads, Mayor Muriel Bowser boasted that crime is down in Washington, D.C. I hate when it does that. Compared to last year, even though a recent string of violence has sent residents fleeing for Virginia and Maryland suburbs. Despite an overall 13% dip this year from January 1st through April 2nd compared to the same time period last year, the District of Columbia is still experiencing a rise in crime compared to the norm in years prior to 2023. It comes after the 23 was recorded as the deadliest year in more than 2 decades. DC also had the largest spike in violent crime out of any other major U.S. city. While data does not reveal a decrease between the specific time period last year to this year, residents are sharing an overall sentiment that crime is on the rise, and they are feeling increasingly less safe in the District of Columbia neighborhoods. And as evident, a person was robbed at gunpoint just blocks from the Hart Senate office building on Wednesday by 2 individuals, at least one of which was armed with a gun. Still, Bowser insists that crime is on the decline and claimed it was down by 30% compared to last year in a Monday interview with CNBC's Squawk Box. We've done the things that we know will reset the hold still. Damn article. We've done the things that we know will reset our public safety ecosystem, she said. Wow, that's a word salad. Outrage ensued over her claims of a decrease in crime. Bowser said going on CNBC this morning and saying crime is coming down in DC was something next level gaslighting. One ex-user wrote on Monday, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about what ex-users had to say. Bottom line, and you can see the graphs here, because there is a slight variance this year and compared to this time last year, does not mean crime rates going down. And because you're not pursuing or convicting crimes as much as you were in the past, does not mean crime rates are going down. It means that you're not prosecuting people. It means that you're not making as many arrests as you did before. But you're going to claim that because there's fewer arrests on record, that there's not as many crimes as have been. Getting into the comments. Lisa's here, says good morning from Scappoose. Where is Scappoose, Lisa? And Dilo is here. Dilo says he likes both channels. Well, I appreciate that, Dilo. Urban says step 1, stop reporting crime. Step 2, start reporting on the 0% crime statistics. And that's exactly what she's doing here. And that's why she's being assaulted, as it were, for her stance on this. That's why, as the title suggests in the Daily Mail here, outrage at DC Mayor Bowser's claim that crime is down in all categories. No, it is not. But this is a common practice that these mayors and even governors in a lot of these states will sit there and profess that the crime rate is down now, when obviously it's not. Obviously it's not. People are still dealing with crime. People are still suffering. But it's a common practice, as I said. At the same time this article is out, they're also hitting New York's mayor for the same thing. And you see here New York Post article, New York City serious crimes hit levels unseen in 2 decades last year, even as Mayor Adams claims it's a perception problem. Oh, I see. And then Lisa confirms that she is in Oregon. Okay. Getting into the article, serious crime spiked again last year to levels unseen in nearly 2 decades, according to international New York police data obtained by the Post, challenging Mayor Eric Adams' repeated claim that the city's rampant unlawfulness is just a perception problem. Oh, you're just looking at it wrong, folks. You don't understand. For the second year in a row under Adams, overall crime was on the rise, driven by a historic surge in assaults, which neared 28,000 for the first time in the city's publicly recorded history, according to the police department's rolling report. Wow. 28,000 claims in one season. The count of major felonies, which includes murder, rape, robbery, assault, burglary, grand larceny, and car thefts, are generally used as a benchmark for success year after year. While Adams has been touting his success in his war against crime, citing a slight dip reported at the end of 2023, the rolling report shows that the early year victory lap was premature. The number of 7 major crimes in 2023 jumped to 127,111 once 404 upgrades were accounted for, making the highest totals since 2006 for the second year in a row, according to the police data. So both years that he's been in office, there's been a massive increase, apparently. Police sources said it could get even worse, as historically up to 800 crimes are upgraded in the rolling report annually before the final tally is set for the year. City Hall has argued it has focused policing efforts on driving down murders and gun violence. How are you going to prevent a murder? How does that work? Is this Minority Report? Is Tom Cruise going to save us? I just, I'm just saying. Where are we here? Murders and gun violence, both of which have seen double-digit percentage dips since Adam became mayor. In recent months, the mayor has been banging the drum about his administration's success in combating crime, proclaiming our strategy is working. In his State of the City speech in January, he touted year-end 2023 data showing a point that is a 0.3. Just think about this. He touted year-end 2023 data showing a 0.3% dip in overall major crime, coupled with double-digit decreases in murder, burglary, and shootings compared to his first year in office. 0.3% dip. Oh, man. Do you know how low that is? That's not anything to brag about. That is not anything to brag about. Back to the comments really quickly. Helter says he says crime is low based on the statistics, but he cherry-picked the numbers he likes from a different day or month to fit the narrative on his statistics. And Urban says, with everything going on in New York City subway catacombs, I find myself wondering where Bernard Goetz is these days. Remember the subway vigilante? Yeah, Paul Kersey was the subway vigilante. Who knows where that's come from? Paul Kersey was the original subway vigilante. Used to ride around with his bags of groceries for hours and hours, just waiting for someone to try to mug him. Monkey says he had a safety meeting at work, which was kind of necessary since we work with not a whole lot of chemicals, but some that is very concernable. I used to work with some pretty dangerous crap when I was at UPS. And Dragon says crime will go down when the mayor and city council start riding the subway without 6 police officers. So there you go. Mayor Adams beating the drum, claiming that, because they all say that they're doing a great job. They all say they got crime down. There's really little evidence of it, but they say it anyways. They're blatantly lying. And people believe it. Actually, nobody believes it. But the media tries to make it look that way until you run across an article like on the Post. And then the Post is like, oh, that's not true. There are some news institutions that will still buck the system. The Post appears to be one of them. Monkey says, yeah, it's crazy. OSHA doesn't even have an indication when it comes to irritants, which baffles me. Interesting. I never read all the way through OSHA. It's too much. It's too much. And I haven't had to deal with that for a long time either. And Monkey says flux smoke when you heat it up. For giving an example there. Giving an example. Well, we're not quite done with New York here, because something else that's going on that's pissing people off. Is this a New York article? Yeah, it is. Okay. Newsweek article talking about New York, I should clarify. Something else that's being done to piss everybody off and drive them out of the city, I very much believe. It looks like this one's going to trip a little bit. Let's see if Restream gets it right. There we go. Restream picked it up. I very much believe that a lot of these major cities, again, or major states, New York State, California, are trying to deliberately destroy their states because they're in bed with companies or billionaires that are trying to buy up the land cheap. And WCM is here. Glad you could make it. And Urban says the viral TikToks of women in shock after being punched in the head by some deranged criminal nut hanging out in the street after being arrested a dozen times and released in order to continue assaulting folks. I wonder if that stuff is staged, though. I think 90% of the time, if I see a video clip, I think they staged it. But, yep, you guessed it. Newsweek article, migrants' monthly payments in New York City is actually higher than veterans' compensation. Veterans have already been insulted. They've already been insulted by the current administration because VA hospitals have been taking care of migrants. And the VA hospitals do not need to be taking care of anyone who was not an honorably discharged soldier, sailor, Marine, whatever. If they were in a branch of the military and they were honorably discharged, those are the only people that should be going to the VA unless there was some natural disaster. Like if there was an earthquake and 500 people are wounded and the hospitals are overcrowded and the VA opened its doors, I get that. This is not that kind of a problem, and they shouldn't be providing medical care. But now, adding insult to injury here, rubbing a little salt in the wound, apparently the New York City payments to their illegal immigrants in order to fund their migrant industrial complex is higher than VA payments. As a matter of fact, it's higher than standard welfare payments as well. And I wonder if they're going to get into that. You know, a lot of these are don't proofread, but we'll get into it here. A family of 4 migrants in New York City receives more monthly funding than a family of 4 that includes a military veteran who receives disability compensation. Oh, don't mess with disability. We're talking veterans. New York City has taken in more than 170,000 migrants and spent upwards of $1.5 billion just in the fiscal year of 23 to shelter, feed, and provide services to the migrants. The city has said that there is no end in sight to the copious numbers of migrants and projects that an extended timeline of the current rate of migration means a cost to the city of approximately $12 billion by the 2025 fiscal year. Yeah, that's working out great. And they're not migrants, they're legal immigrants. Mayor Eric Adams, who like mayors in Chicago and Denver, has requested more assistance from the federal government. Of course, he said the influx of migrants could destroy his city, and yet still allows it and still caters to it, by the way. He is feuded with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who has busted illegal migrants to northern cities because of their sanctuary status. Shouldn't have had a sanctuary status and shouldn't have allowed Texas to just get overrun. What do you want them to do? They're already up to their eyeballs in this. Migrants coming to New York City are being given prepaid debit cards that in certain cases like food assistance dwarf the amounts provided to families of legal status. For example, the average family of 4's monthly supplemental nutrition assistance program or SNAP payments, and that's food stamps. That's a SNAP card is effectively your food stamp card now that they've done away with the food stamp program. In a manner of speaking, you get the card now. That's what SNAP is if you're not sure. So the average for a family of 4 will get $713 in food assistance, but a migrant family of 4 will receive $1,400 a month. Wow. So a migrant family of 4 is getting double what a family of 4 on welfare would receive on their SNAP card. And that's just the food assistance card. That's not even the cash payments. Let that sink in. That total is also higher than a military veteran's disability compensation. A veteran who has a 50% disability rating and a spouse and 1 child receives $1,255.16 once every 4 weeks. According to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, when a child under the age of 18 is added to that family, the payment rises $51 to $1,306.16 a month, still nearly $100 less than what a migrant family of 4 receives from their prepaid card assistance. Vets on SNAP programs can use that money for food in addition to disability compensation they receive from the government. Adams has said that the prepaid cards, part of a $53 million budget allocated that is replacing food boxes offered to migrants at New York City hotels, will cut 20% of the migrant cost in the city, which is probably true because they throw that food away. We read that article a couple of months ago that the majority of the food that the migrants are getting offered, they turn their nose up at. They say that it doesn't taste good, it's too cold, whatever. They have too many complaints about it, and they throw it away. They won't eat it. That's at a terrible taxpayer expense. to pay all those caterers to do that every day. And these people are supposed to be seeking asylum, coming crawling to the United States. They walked 3,000 miles to cross the border and bust all over the country. And they're just looking for help, but they won't eat the meal. It doesn't fit. You know what I mean? It doesn't fit the narrative. Adams has said that the prepaid cards, under Adams' program, 10 migrant families were provided in late March with immediate response cards loaded with $350 a week for a family of 4 to spend on essential purchases as gas. It says Bode gas. Grocery stores. What's Bode gas? Am I missing something? Supermarkets and convenience stores. The pilot program will be rolled out to 500 people. It'll expand beyond that. Cards are being distributed at the Roosevelt Hotel, which has been a migrant shelter since last year. And according to New York's Department of Citywide Administrative Services, the first touch point for new arriving asylum seekers. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let me catch up a couple of comments here. Urban says, why give veterans more money if they're not even going to vote for the Democrats? Jobless illegal migrants are the Democrats' only election hopes. Dragon says they hold migrants in better esteem than people that defend our country. It's sickening. Yeah. And yeah, don't get me started with the veterans. Seriously. I mean, if you went overseas and you got wounded, you got blown up, shot up, burned up, whatever, you should be compensated for it. You should be compensated for it. And it's insulting that these people are getting more than a veteran would, and getting veteran services as well. And Rodney says, previously they thought Biden administration was working against its own citizens. Now there's no doubt. Yes. And Rodney also made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Rodney. Always appreciated. Always appreciated. I need all the help I can get. And Monkey says 1,400 for food. That's literally enough to live off food. If you were by yourself. Piss away the tax money to these migrants. Yeah, I know. That's a lot, actually, for food. And Monkey said, and they're living in a shelter. Where are they going to put the food when they buy it? Can I throw that out there? They're living either in the hotel and they're living at the shelter, which both are providing food that they will not eat. What's happening with these cards? Or are they selling them? Like, a lot of people will sell their SNAP cards. They still call it food stamps, even though there's no food stamps anymore. But they sell those, and we've talked about that before. The way it works is, you walk around the supermarket and you literally ask people. I've had people come up to me in the supermarket and ask me if I wanted to buy their card, and they sell it to you for 50 cents on the dollar. Basically, you shop and they go through the line with you and they swipe it. You give them half the cash of whatever it costs. I don't do that, but I know it's done and I know how it works. And my ex used to do that all the time. I couldn't stand it because it was a lot of really shady people that she'd talk to. They look like they're going to run right out and smoke crack right after they get their money. You know what I mean? But if they're living in shelters and they're living in the hotels and motels at taxpayer expense, and all their meals are being catered, why do they need this card? And what's actually happening with that money? Monkey says, funny that Adams doesn't want the migrants anymore in New York City, but has yet to make a move to get out of the sanctuary city and to remove them. Yeah, indeed. And Urban says at least American veterans are not coerced into assisted suicide or MAID program every time they go to the doctor, like in Canada. Are they pushing that on veterans? I know they got the MAID program, and I read the article. You probably remember about 2 or 3 months ago, because they're expanding that program. They're expanding on that program, making it bigger. Are they pushing that on veterans at their VA appointments? Urban. That's interesting. And you know what's it strikes me too is my wife just went to the VA Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday this week. She had a VA appointment, which is they've been reduced, by the way. They used to they just schedule them for you. They used to schedule her appointments all the time, and they've cut back on that recently. But she had her appointment, and one of the things they did that they've never done before was they wanted pronoun information. They wanted to clarify who and what she identified as, and they wanted the same information for me. What does your husband identify as? What does your husband think his gender is? That kind of stuff. And she was like, "Are you freaking serious? Seriously? We're doing this now too?" So yeah, they are. They are. Flukeman says Afghanian vets were told to leave their equipment behind and the military will cover the cost, but now they tell them they'll have to pay for it themselves. Wow. And Urban says, yes, they're pushing it on everyone. Wait until they start tracking what you do about all the depressed gender transitioners. Oh, yeah. Because those people, they go through those surgeries, and we've talked about that many times. I've read several articles on the subject as well, and plus my own experience with the interview process that I did for the Boston Phoenix years ago. They are manically depressed. They are miserable people. And when they go through the transmogrification process of becoming a woman, it doesn't work. And they're even more depressed because it didn't work. They're still unhappy and they can't fix the damage that's been done. Once you've gone through that process, the damage is irreversible. Even if you don't have the surgeries and you're just taking the medications, it has permanent side effects that can't be fixed. So yeah, there's a lot of depression there. I can see that. Nobody should be encouraging you to commit suicide. That's insane. Puck is here. He says, never trust the supply sergeant. Yeah, tell that to Kelly's Heroes. Oh, what was his name? Who was the Don Rickles? Don Rickles was the supply sergeant on Kelly's Heroes. And Brian says you identify as Coffee Talk. Yes, I identify as coffee. I told her that she should have told them that she identified as a meat popsicle. Who knows where that's from? I've made like 4 different movie references here so far. Who knows where the meat popsicle reference comes from? See if anybody picks that up. I identify as a meat popsicle. And New York Patriot is here, says they're driving home. Glad you could make it, as well as McNixon. McNixon is joining us here this afternoon on Coffee Talk Live, talking about, of course, and you probably, if you were coming in a little bit late, the migrant assistant food cards are higher than what the equivalent grouping of people would receive as either VA compensation or for SNAP benefits. So if you had a family of 4 on welfare, you would get half as much as you would on this migrant card. They said the average for a family of 4 getting SNAP benefits, a food stamp card, is $713, but for migrant families it's $1,400, nearly double. And same thing, veterans. It says a veteran who has 50% disability, and I'll point that out too, because I'm sure if you have any veteran status, with each percent it goes up. So they gave a medium of 50%. Family of 4, $1,255. It's insulting. It's absolutely insulting. Mark says Animal House. No, that's not where it comes from. But Chris and Monkey figured it out. It's the Fifth Element. It's when the police were going door to door, and there's the 2 circles in the hallway. That when the police knock on your door, you have to put your hands on the circle. And he says, and he asked him who he was, and he says, "I am a meat popsicle." And then Urban says Sergeant Bilko knew how to game the system. Yeah, Sergeant Bilko knew how to game the system. Yes, indeed. Oh, New York Patriot also says Fifth Element. as we catch this up. Rodney guessed it. Okay, bunch of people figured it out. Fifth element. That's where we are. But also, and this is the new divide, by the way, because we're going to jump from New York to Boston here and look at a similar problem. This is the new divide. Bad enough we're dividing you by gender. We're making people hate each other because of gender identity. We're making people hate each other because of sexual identity. We're making people hate each other because of racial identity. Okay? This migrant industrial complex also opens the door for hating people based on immigration status, because they're getting all these benefits that in many cases citizens of this country who participate, who pay taxes, who have their taxes spent on things that they don't agree with, that we have no choice. It's not like you can just not pay your taxes. There's no way to do it. There's no way, not in the modern age. This isn't the 1920s here, okay, where you might can squeak by, slip under the radar. There's nothing you can do to avoid paying taxes, and there's nothing that you can do to influence how that money is spent. And a lot of it is being spent on the migrant industrial complex. And this is also creating a massive divide with American people, because American citizens want them the hell out of here at this point. There's very few people that are sympathetic anymore, I think. So that brings us now from New York to Boston. Different context, but similar problem. Similar problem. Fox News article, Boston residents rip, quote, disgusting plan to house migrants at a former veterans shelter. There we go again. There we go again, squeezing out veterans. Monkey says this is regressing back to Jim Crow law with the segregation, but except it's non-whites that are trying to enforce this. And Puck says Democrats losing the black vote on illegal immigration because of that. And they very well could be. They very well could be. Everybody should see this as someone taking the spoon out of your mouth. All of these things that are being done. Oh, and Fox News, by the way, also took a hit from the executive branch of the White House. And I read the articles the other day, the Easter coverage. Fox News and a couple of other news providers were threatened. I don't have the article pulled up, but I looked at it earlier. Threatened by the executive branch of the White House to stop talking about what happened at the Easter celebration. They have the White House Easter that they do, and they had the whole business with Trans Visibility Day that they talked about, the Transmogrified Visibility Day that Biden just had to mention, and not allowing for religious symbolism at their Easter celebration. And they've gone around now. The White House has gone around and made the rounds of contacting these news agencies and warning them to back off talking about those stories. Yeah, nice, right? So much for freedom of speech. So back to the article about Boston. Residents are up in arms about a plan to shelter hundreds of migrants inside a former Boston area veterans shelter. Quote, I can't believe the Chelsea Soldiers Home, which is for the vets, is going to be used for the immigrants' overflow. Massachusetts resident George Belmonte said on social media, how about taking care of the homeless vets first? I am all for helping people, but how about taking care of those already here and homeless? Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey announced last week that the historic Chelsea Soldiers Home would be converted into a facility to house 100 migrant families, including pregnant women. If I don't want to hear one more damn story about some poor migrant walking 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 miles through South America to get to the United States, and then I find out they're pregnant. The location was previously vacant and scheduled for demolition. That's not what I heard. But looking at these stories, so you see the building, it doesn't look bad. I thought it was going to be rebuilt but now it's being rebuilt into a shelter. If they were going to demolish it, it wouldn't make sense to revamp the building into a shelter. Something's wrong here. Massachusetts resident Denise Levy also expressed anger that migrants would be put in the location for free while veterans who fought for our country are paying to live there. Massachusetts, okay. According to the Chelsea Soldiers Home's website, single veterans living there had to pay $30 a day with a $300 personal exemption from personal income for nursing home care. Veterans who did not require nursing home care were asked to give $10 a day with a $300 exemption. Chelsea Soldiers Home was shut down in December after Massachusetts opened a larger veterans facility on Powderhorn Hill. So the facility was shut down. They claim it was scheduled for demolition, even though the building was intact. They were going to, I guess, rebuild or repurpose the building, but now it's going to be a shelter for migrants. If it was in condition that it needed to be demolished, nobody should be in there. That's why I question that. They opened another veterans home, but this can still be used for that purpose. And again, all it does is fuel the anger of the citizens who live in these areas. Why are you doing something for free for these people again? Enough already. Fluke Man says, like Andy in Shawshank Redemption, slipped under the radar, made hundreds of thousands of dollars while he was in prison. Monkey says, so Biden's executive branch is enforcing a little thing of encroaching on First Amendment, something actually dictators would do, aka limiting the press. Yeah, they pushed on that. Like I said, I don't have the article pulled up right now, but I did see that earlier today, and if I remember, I'll clip the article for tomorrow. Urban says the aging armies of the old wars are being replaced by the young armies invading the land in preparation for the next war. And Puck says, who knew that U.S. residents were obligated to care and feed for people that have no business being there? Yeah, and they have no choice, and that's what I was talking about. You have no control over how your tax money is spent. They take it from you by force. There is no way for you to not pay your taxes. You can't get away with it. You really just can't. They'll take it out of your check. They'll take it out of your bank account. They'll take it out of your ass. They will bury you if you don't cooperate. There's practically no oversight, if any at all, with the revenue service. So your tax money is just taken willy-nilly, and they spend it however the hell they decide to, and you have no say in it. And of course, the typical answer is, well, that's why you get a vote, so you can get them bad apples out. And yeah, if that worked, there would be no bad apples because they'd all be afraid of being voted out. And they're not. They're not afraid. They don't care. And they blatantly do what they do right in our faces because they know that we can't do anything about it. They know that we're helpless. We can't stop them from spending it. It's easy to spend someone else's money, and they're good at it. Monkey says, and for the 100th time, they yet claim the right is anti-free speech. And remember, if Trump did something like that, the articles would be screaming about Trump being a dictator, blah, blah, blah. And Puck said that bad apples are counting the votes. Yeah, that very likely could be. That very likely could be. And speaking of bad apples and bad connections and bad tie-ins, something about our friend old Hang 'em High Epstein. Hang 'em High Epstein back in the news today. String 'em up Epstein. King of the Necktie Fan Club. Talking about his island again. This is interesting, and I'm going to make a connection here. This is a State of the Union article. Jeffrey Epstein's island visitors exposed in a data breach. Were they? Let's find out. Location data from nearly 200 mobile devices that visited Epstein's private island was collected by controversial data broker Near Intelligence and revealed the residences of many guests. Near recorded visits from 80 cities across the U.S., corresponding to affluent homes. While meant for marketing purposes, the data was also sold to the U.S. military. Why does the Pentagon want to buy this list? If it mapped not just millionaire estates, but areas where Epstein's victims lived. This raised, and this is why they're trying to block this, this raised privacy concerns from attorney Lisa Bloom, who represented alleged victims. Quote, most of the clients who come to me, their number one concern is privacy and safety, attorney Lisa Bloom said. It's deeply concerning to think that any sexual abuse victims located will be tracked and then stored and then sold to someone who can presumably do whatever they want with it. No one beyond Epstein and Maxwell has been charged in the trafficking cases, though the FBI has possession of evidence. In January, more Epstein documents were unsealed, revealing associations to prominent figures like Clinton, Jackson, and Pritzker, and Kennedy Jr., who admitted it before the information was released. He got out ahead of it, but he's been there. The records do not raise new allegations, but further expose information about Prince Andrew and Brunel related to Jane Doe number 3. All right. Now, here's the thing. No one is trying to get this information. No one is trying to get this information so that they can expose victims. I do not want to know who was taken advantage of on that island. I don't want to know. They've been through enough. I think most people that are trying to look into this don't want to know. They'll stay away from that. What people want to know was who was going there for services, because the people that he associated with and the people that are rumored to have been or are confirmed to have gone to that island and allegedly used his services are prominent actors and musicians and politicians and capitals of finance. And people would like to know who those people are, because they'd like to knock them off of their pedestals. Did Bill Clinton get services there? I think people should know. That's what people want to find out. That's what people are after. How about Bill Gates? Bill Gates met with Epstein several times and donated a lot of money to his alleged charities. What's Bill Gates got to do with it? You see what I mean? Tom Hanks has been rumored to have gone there. Oprah Winfrey has been rumored to have gone there. These people are not as wholesome and wonderful as they try to come off. Then people should know, so that they can stop paying into their brand. You know what I mean? Now, let me catch up a couple of comments. Urban says, every time I get excited about who's on Epstein's visitor list, it turns out to be a big nothing burger. Yeah, exactly. Because they still don't tell you anything here. All they're doing is making excuses for why they won't release the list again. Oh, well, we're concerned about privacy. All right, how about this? Redact the names of the victims and let us see the rest of it. Because, again, I think most people, there's no point in knowing who the victims were. I don't need to know that. Go on with your life. Sorry that happened to you. I want to know who was involved. Who did this to you? Who benefited from it? Who was part of that? That's what's important, because it's not just Maxwell and Epstein. Who were your clients? Who was on that client list? And it's hilarious because you think about how this works. All right. Now, there are countries, there are places you can go where you can hook up with an underage prostitute. Okay. Bangkok and Thailand, and I guess places like that, as far as I understand. If I were to go to that country, access someone who's underage, even though it's legal there, I am still technically bound by the laws in the United States. So if I went there and did that and came back here, I could still be arrested and go to jail if law enforcement found out about it. Because they're like, well, we don't care if the age of consent over there is 11. You're an American citizen. So even though it's legal there and it happened there, they'll still convict you here. Why isn't this happening to the people on that list? Why are they getting under the wire here? Why are they under the radar? And unknown nose is here. The unknown nose is here. Glad you could make it. Puck says, on the plus side, there are some positive decisions on 2A cases coming out of SCOTUS lately. That's good. And they also emphasize the whole Epstein affair is an exhibit of for proof that the deep state, does exist. And Picacario is here. Glad you could make it. And Brian says that they wish Tom Hanks was more like Forrest Gump. Yeah, I bet. But that's really, I mean, that's my point. Like I said, you're still subject to U.S. laws no matter where you go in the world. If you go to another country and commit a crime or do something that's considered a crime in the U.S., case in point, underage prostitution, you'll be convicted for it in the U.S. if they find out. Here they are sitting on a list of people who committed those types of crimes, sitting on that list, and they're not doing anything about it. They're not doing anything about it. This is what's upsetting everybody, and this is why everybody keeps trying to find out who the hell is on that list. Who's on that list? Why aren't they being convicted? What did they do? What did they do? How are they involved? As I had said, Bill Gates denies going to the island, but he met with Epstein several times. He's donated large amounts of money, and I mean millions, to Epstein's charities. Him and his wife separated after this, within this time frame of his communication with Epstein. Some curious stuff. Prince Harry was there. I mean, you all know. You all know. And I question it. That's what we want to know. These people that you love to put on pedestals and tell us how great and fantastic they are and have us worship them. Oh, you're the best musician. Oh, you're the best politician. Can't trust any of them. Urban says they believe everyone on that list. I believe that everyone is on that list, just like everyone was on Weinstein's list. Now you remember, who remembers that guy? Yeah, Weinstein was a scapegoat because you think he's the only producer in Hollywood that was doing that kind of stuff. And they knew it. They all knew for a long time. They did nothing about it. They do nothing about it. Donna says they remember. Of course. They knew nothing about it. Or they knew plenty about it, rather. I said that backwards. They knew all about it, but they acted like nothing. And I've cited before, and you can find the video clip of it on YouTube. Look up Bette Midler, Weinstein, Johnny Carson. because she was on the Carson show in the 80s, I believe it was, in the late 80s, telling a story on his show, and it aired, of Weinstein and another guy cornering her in a bathroom at a party, a private party, and trying to molest her. And she got out of there by the skin of her teeth, as they say. She was irate about it. She was upset. So they all knew. They've known for a long time. But now all of a sudden, oh, Weinstein bad, let's prosecute him. What about the other 100 people that did that? Where are they? Fluke Man says, isn't prostitution illegal in the U.S. excluding Atlanta? I don't think it's legal in Atlanta. I think it's only legal in one county in Nevada, a county that's near Las Vegas, is legal. Nowhere else in the United States do I think it's technically legal. But it says if American went to another country, legally spent time with an adult prostitute, can get arrested if he returns back to the U.S. I don't know about if that would be enforced, because that's a misdemeanor. It's a minor crime. It's like pay a fine and go home kind of a crime. But because there are people who go to some of these places because they have a very low age of consent in certain third world countries, and that's a different kettle of fish, as they say. New York Patriot says the Bunny Ranch. The Bunny Ranch. One of the brothels? I don't know what county it is. I've never even been in Nevada. But that's one of the places or one of the brothels in Nevada that has, or in that county in Nevada that has prostitution available. Yeah. Picacario says Nevada. And Puck says Thailand, for example. Yeah, Thailand, like most third world countries, has a much lower age of consent. And that's the thing. A prostitution, they probably wouldn't convict you here for if you did it overseas and you were exposed. But if it was a minor, then they would very likely pursue that. Urban says the worst terminology is child prostitute. A child cannot consent to. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Choose to be a prostitute. It's child abuse, grooming, and the rest of it. Also in Canada, we say street workers. But you know what I mean, though. I mean, I'm not by any means condoning the practice. I'm just making the example. I don't like to see anybody doing that sort of thing, particularly a minor, because as Urban points out, that would be coercion. That would be absolutely coercion. They would have to be forced into it completely. It's a sad world we live in where people want to do that. And Fluke Man says, reminds me of a US TV show. I think it was called Cat House. I'm not familiar with the show. I don't know. I do not know. And New York Patriot says Lyon County. How do you know that, New York Patriot? Shame on you. Or did you just look it up? I'm teasing, though. But like I said, I never went to Nevada or Las Vegas or Nevada, but whatever. Same difference. And Urban says, I too use this terminology, which proves to me that we, the adults, are also being groomed to normalize all the derangement. Yeah, you watch wording. Wording is very important. One last article here. This is something pretty stupid. Okay. I saw this article. It piqued my interest for a moment. And then it occurred to me as I read this article, I never heard any of this shit. This is a War History Online article. It says 5 myths about the American Civil War people need to stop believing are true. So these 5 things about the Civil War that everybody believes that are lies is what they're suggesting. And I read this article. I read their 5 things. I've never heard one of these. I don't think I've ever heard any of this. And that's why I wanted to share it. Why are you telling me that this is 5 myths everybody believes? And I never heard it. So it says 5 myths about the American Civil War. Among the most discussed subjects in U.S. history, the American Civil War remains in the public consciousness over 160 years after it broke out. They won't let us forget it. While much of the disclosure surrounding the conflict is grounded in fact, there are certain elements that have been embellished over time. And here come the 5 that people believe. The first one, Robert E. Lee did not own slaves or support slavery. False. Robert E. Lee didn't own slaves or support slavery. And basically they say here, they explain that he did indeed own slaves. I never have heard that Robert E. Lee didn't have slaves. Have any of you ever heard that? I've never heard that. Why are you telling me that this is something that people believe? That people believe. I've never heard this. Never heard this. The next one, Ulysses S. Grant was drunk during the Battle of Shiloh. Ulysses S. Grant was drunk during the Battle of Shiloh. I've never heard that. I've never heard that he was drunk anywhere. Never mind the Battle of Shiloh. Have you ever heard this? Did you ever hear this? Why are you trying to tell us these are things that people believe? Amputations. This is number 3. Amputations were frequently performed without anesthesia. And this one, they're equivocating a little bit. All right. They go on to explain that they did have anesthesia, that they would typically use chloroform. But then they mention in the article that it wasn't always available. So if it wasn't always available, then yes, amputations, maybe not as frequently as people might think because of Hollywood movies, but amputations did occur without any anesthetic because they didn't have access to it. Just because it was available sometimes doesn't mean that straight up, take a shot of whiskey, son, we're going to saw your leg off, didn't happen. You see what I mean? Puck says, when wasn't Grant drunk? I have no idea. An unknown says they never heard that. Yeah, this is my point. Why are you spinning this narrative? And here we go. This one, I think this is what, number 4? The Confederate Army was made up of volunteers. I never, for a moment, I never heard that the Confederate Army was volunteers. My understanding was that the majority of them were conscripted, just like with the Union Army, just like in most warfare, all the way up until, in the U.S., all the way up until Vietnam. I think that Vietnam was the last time we drafted. Who thought that they weren't forced conscription soldiers, forced into service? They didn't volunteer. Are you kidding me? Who thought this? I never heard that. And what's the last one? States' rights were the cause of the war. This one needs just a hair of clarification. It says one of the main arguments from Confederate apologists is that the cause of the conflict was not slavery. They frequently argue the cause was states' rights, and the Union infringed upon the South's right to continue owning slaves. That makes no sense. What I have heard, I didn't hear that they wanted to secede from the Union because they were being told they couldn't have slaves. I never heard that. What I heard was they wanted to secede from the Union because they were getting crushed in duties taxes. They were getting crushed in tax, that the southern states were being taken advantage of by the federal government in the amount of taxes that they had to pay, and that's why they decided to break away. That the whole slavery thing didn't come up until later. That's what I've heard. Not that they seceded over states' rights based on slavery, which would still be seceding over states' rights. So this one doesn't even make sense. It's funny the stuff that they try to convince you of, isn't it? But there we go. Unknown says a clickbait article. No kidding. And New York Patriot said trying to rewrite history right out of the Fahrenheit 451 playbook. Exactly. Exactly. And we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up. Anyways, I just thought I would close out at the end of the day with that one. Who believes that stuff? Nobody. I don't. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk. This is at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you wouldn't mind checking me out there, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Special thanks to Rodney, who made a donation to the channel today. Much appreciated. And again, always appreciate everyone who's able to join us for the live portion. Hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will see you again